When we talk about self-confidence, most people immediately think it is about standing tall, speaking loudly, and appearing unshakable. But that is not confidence, that is just an act. Confidence is not something you can wear like clothes. It is not something you can put on before going to a meeting or an interview. It is not about rehearsing a strong tone or practicing handshakes. Real confidence comes from something far more subtle, something far more intimate. It comes from clarity. If you are clear about who you are, if you are clear about what matters to you, then confidence is not something you need to develop, it naturally radiates. But when there is confusion inside, no matter how much you train yourself to appear confident, it will always be fragile. One small criticism, one strange look, one little rejection, and suddenly your so-called confidence collapses. Have you noticed this? You may have prepared for days, telling yourself, I am confident, I am strong, but the moment someone disagrees with you, all the strength disappears. Why does this happen? Because it was never real. It was borrowed from the outside, not rooted within. Clarity is the foundation. Imagine you are walking through a dark room filled with furniture. You don't know where the tables are, where the chairs are, where the walls are. Every step is taken with hesitation. You may bump into something, you may stumble, and naturally you feel nervous. But if the light is turned on, you walk with ease. You don't need someone to tell you to be confident. It just happens because you can see clearly. Life is exactly like this. When there is clarity within you, you walk with ease. Confidence is not something you practice, it is a natural consequence of seeing things the way they are. Now, what does it mean to know yourself clearly? It means to drop the borrowed ideas about who you are. From the day you were born, people have been giving you labels, your family, your friends, your teachers, society at large. They told you, you are smart, you are not good enough, you should behave this way, you must succeed in this way. And unknowingly, you have been carrying these voices as your own identity. So, when you try to build confidence on top of this confusion, it is like building a house on quicksand. It never stands strong. Clarity comes when you stop trying to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. If you are chasing other people's approval, if you are trying to live by their script, then of course you will feel insecure. Because no matter how hard you try, you will never fully match their expectations. But if you look within and ask yourself honestly, what truly matters to me? What kind of life do I want to create? What is natural to me? Suddenly, a different kind of strength rises within. It is no longer about impressing others, it is about living in alignment with yourself. And when you live like that, confidence is not an effort, it is a natural fragrance of your being. Have you noticed children? A small child has no concept of confidence or lack of it. The child simply does what he feels. If he wants to laugh, he laughs. If he wants to cry, he cries. If he wants to dance in the middle of the street, he dances. He does not look around asking, will people approve of me? Will they clap for me? He simply is. That is confidence in its purest form, because it comes from clarity, from innocence. Over time, as we grow, we bury that clarity under layers of fear, comparison, and expectation. And then we spend the rest of our lives searching for confidence as if it is some missing object. So the first step is not to go looking for confidence. The first step is to clean your inner space. Sit with yourself. See what thoughts you are carrying that don't belong to you. See what expectations are ruling your choices. Once you see this clearly, half the weight falls off, and with every layer of confusion you shed, confidence begins to blossom effortlessly. It is not about adding something. It is about removing the noise that hides what is already there. Clarity also means recognizing your limitations without shame. If you know you cannot run like a cheetah, why feel insecure about it? If you know you are not a singer, why compare yourself to one? Clarity is not only about knowing your strengths, but also about embracing your limitations with ease. When you stop pretending, when you stop hiding, a great sense of freedom comes. And from that freedom, real confidence arises. So, do not try to wear confidence like makeup. Don't try to shout louder or walk straighter thinking that is confidence. Instead, seek clarity. Because when you can see yourself and your life as they are, you no longer hesitate, you no longer stumble in the dark. You simply walk, and every step carries its own strength. That is where true confidence begins. When we speak about trusting your own steps, it is important to understand that most human beings hesitate not because they are incapable, but because they are always second guessing themselves. Every decision becomes a battlefield in the mind. What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if people laugh? In this constant loop of what ifs, the energy that could have gone into action is wasted in endless self-doubt. This is why so many people remain stuck where they are. They want to move, they want to grow, but they do not trust their own feet to carry them forward. You see, even a wrong step is better than standing still in fear. Because when you walk, whether the step is right or wrong, you learn, you see something, you experience something, and that becomes part of your growth. But if you freeze, if you remain paralyzed by fear of making a mistake, you gain nothing. Time moves on, life moves on, but you are left behind, still analyzing, still preparing for a perfect moment that never arrives. Trusting your steps means accepting that sometimes you will stumble, sometimes you will fall, but even then, each fall teaches you how to rise with more strength. Think of a child learning to walk. The child falls again and again. If the child sat down one day and said, "What if I fall tomorrow? I better not try," none of us would be walking today. The reason you are able to move around with ease now is because, as a child, you did not overthink. You trusted your legs even when they were weak. You trusted your balance even when it was shaky. You trusted that falling was part of the process. But somewhere along the way, as you grew up, you began to overanalyze. Suddenly every step had to be perfect. Every action had to guarantee success. And this demand for perfection slowly eroded your natural trust in yourself. Life is not a straight, predictable line. It is full of curves, bumps, and surprises. If you wait for complete certainty before you move, you will never move. Trusting your steps is not about knowing everything in advance. It is about having the courage to move without all the answers. It is about saying, "I may not know where this road leads, but I am willing to walk it, and I am willing to learn along the way." This willingness is the seed of confidence. Most people think confidence means, "I will succeed in everything I do." That is not confidence, that is arrogance. Real confidence means, even if I fail, I can handle it. Even if I fall, I can stand again. When you trust your steps, you no longer measure your worth by success or failure. You begin to see both as part of the journey. Success teaches you joy, failure teaches you wisdom. Both are useful. Both are necessary. But if you sit still, afraid of either, you miss both. You must understand that nobody who has done anything worthwhile in life has walked only on perfectly safe ground. Every inventor, every artist, every leader, at some point they stepped into the unknown, unsure of how it would turn out. If they waited for certainty, we would have no discoveries, no progress, no art, no beauty. They trusted their steps, and even when they stumbled, those very stumbles became the foundation of something greater. So the question is not whether you will fail or succeed. The question is, will you trust yourself enough to take the step at all? When you trust your own movement, confidence grows like a muscle. Every time you act despite doubt, every time you choose courage over hesitation, you strengthen that muscle. Slowly you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin to say, "Whatever comes, I can handle it." That is real strength. And trust does not mean recklessness. Trusting your steps does not mean jumping off a cliff without looking. It means you look, you decide, and then you move without torturing yourself with endless hesitation. It is not blind. It is not careless. It is a conscious choice to act instead of being trapped in the prison of overthinking. So do not wait for perfect certainty. Do not wait until fear disappears. Fear may always whisper in your ear, but if you learn to trust your steps, fear becomes background noise instead of a controlling force. You move anyway, and in moving, you discover that the ground beneath you is not as fragile as you imagined. Trust is not something you borrow from others. Trust is something you cultivate within. If you live your life always asking others, "Do you think I am doing the right thing? Do you think I will succeed?" you will remain chained to their answers. Trust means you stop outsourcing your life. You take ownership of your choices, you take responsibility for your steps. This very ownership gives you strength. So, when I say trust your steps, I mean this: walk forward. Not because you are sure of the road, but because you are willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to live fully. Let every step, whether steady or shaky, be yours. Because when you trust yourself enough to walk, the path itself begins to trust you, and doors you never imagined will quietly open before you. That is how confidence is born. When we look at why so many people feel insecure, why their confidence shatters so easily, it is usually because they have tied their sense of self to the opinions of others. The moment someone praises them, they rise. The moment someone criticizes them, they fall. This is not confidence, this is slavery. You have handed over the remote control of your life to everyone around you. A single comment, a single look, a single word, and your whole inner state changes. How can you ever be stable? How can you ever feel strong if your worth is constantly dependent on outside approval? Detaching from external validation is not about becoming arrogant or dismissive of others. It does not mean you stop listening to people altogether. It simply means your sense of who you are is not built on the fragile foundation of other people's opinions. Because you must understand, people are not really thinking about you as much as you imagine. Everyone is busy with their own struggles, their own fears, their own battles. Yet, you spend hours, even days, replaying what someone said about you as if their words define your existence. Confidence cannot come from applause, because the same people who clap for you today may turn their backs on you tomorrow. If you live for their approval, you will die from their rejection. But if you are anchored in yourself, if you know your own value without needing a stamp of approval, then neither applause nor criticism shakes you. You remain steady. That steadiness is confidence. Have you noticed how quickly moods change when we depend on others' opinions? Someone tells you, "You look wonderful today," and suddenly you walk taller, you feel brighter. A few hours later, another person says, "You look tired," and your shoulders drop, you start doubting yourself. How fragile must your self-image be if it swings with every passing remark? If 10 people compliment you and one person criticizes you, most of the time you forget the 10 and obsess over the one. This shows that deep down you do not trust yourself. You are waiting for the world to tell you who you are. But when you detach from this need, when you begin to see yourself clearly, when you understand that your worth is not on loan from others, then confidence flowers naturally. You no longer seek constant reassurance. You no longer tremble at criticism. Instead, you begin to see opinions for what they are: just passing voices, reflections of someone else's mood, their perspective, not absolute truths about you. The greatest freedom comes when you no longer perform for others. Too many people are acting every day, trying to impress, trying to fit in, trying to maintain an image. It is exhausting and it is never enough, because no matter how hard you try, someone will always disapprove. If your confidence depends on pleasing everyone, you will spend your life chasing shadows. Detachment means you no longer act out of fear of rejection or hunger for applause. You act because it feels true to you, because it matters to you. This does not mean you become careless. You can still listen, you can still learn from feedback. But the difference is in where you place your anchor. When your anchor is inside, you can consider others' opinions without being tossed around by them. You can take what is useful, discard what is not, and remain steady. That steadiness is what makes people respect you. When you are not desperate for approval, you naturally become stronger in the eyes of others. Let me put it this way, if you are always trying to drink from other people's cups, you will always remain thirsty. But if you learn to draw water from your own well, you will never run dry. External validation is temporary, it quenches your thirst for a moment, but soon you need more. Internal clarity is permanent, it nourishes you from within, and once you taste it, you stop begging for drops from others. True confidence shines when you are at peace with yourself, whether people like you or not, whether they clap or not, whether they even notice you or not. You do not shrink in the absence of praise, and you do not inflate in its presence. You remain who you are. And when you live like that, a deep freedom enters your life. Suddenly, you realize how much energy you were wasting trying to impress, trying to fit in, trying to be enough in the eyes of others. All that energy, once freed, can now flow into living, creating, and growing. So do not measure your worth by how people see you. Do not let the mirror of others define your reflection. Learn to see yourself clearly, without distortion, without dependency. Then, whether the world approves or rejects, whether it notices you or ignores you, your confidence will remain untouched. That is the power of detachment. That is when confidence becomes unshakable. When it comes to building confidence, many people make the mistake of believing that it is something they must first feel before they can act. They sit and wait, hoping that one day they will wake up full of courage, full of certainty, and only then will they speak, only then will they step forward, only then will they pursue what they desire. But this day never comes, because confidence is not something that descends upon you like a blessing. It is not a gift that arrives before action. Confidence is born only after you act. If you keep thinking, let me prepare a little more, let me wait until I feel ready, life will simply pass you by. You will keep postponing your growth, convincing yourself that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow comes and you still feel the same, because confidence has not been created in thought, it is created in experience. No amount of imagining, no amount of rehearsing in your head can give you the steadiness that one single step in reality can bring. Think of the first time you learned to ride a bicycle. You could read about it, you could watch others, you could imagine yourself riding, but the actual balance came only when you climbed on and moved. You may have fallen, you may have wobbled, but with each attempt, your body learned, your mind adjusted, and confidence grew. The same is true for every area of life. Confidence is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. But if you wait for the muscle to strengthen before you use it, it will remain weak forever. Many people say, "But what if I fail?" And I ask, what is so terrible about failure? You stumble, you make a mistake, you fall short. So what? At least you know now. At least you have moved. Failure is not the opposite of confidence. Failure is the very soil in which confidence grows. Every act, whether successful or not, adds to your strength because you dared to act. Even if you failed, you proved to yourself that you are not paralyzed, that you are capable of moving despite uncertainty. That proof is far more powerful than any amount of thinking. You must understand that confidence does not mean the absence of fear. Fear may always be there. The trembling voice, the shaking hands, the racing heart, they may still come. Confidence means you go ahead anyway. You speak even when your voice trembles. You step forward even when your knees are weak. And slowly, With every repetition, the trembling reduces, the shaking settles, and steadiness becomes natural. But if you wait for fear to vanish before you move, you will be waiting for eternity. Every human being you admire for their confidence has gone through this same process. They were not born fearless. They were not born certain. They simply acted despite their doubts, and over time, action carved out their confidence. Whether it was a speaker addressing thousands, an artist sharing their work, or an entrepreneur taking a risk, they all began with shaky steps. But because they acted, those shaky steps became solid ground. Action also reveals to you that the world is not as harsh as your mind imagines. Before you act, you build so many stories. They will laugh at me, they will reject me, they will think I am foolish. But when you actually step forward, you discover that most people are not thinking about you at all, and those who are move on quickly. The weight of judgment you carried in your head was far heavier than the reality outside. Without action, you remain trapped in these imagined fears. With action, you see reality, and reality is often far kinder than imagination. Another important thing is that confidence built on action is stable because it is rooted in your own experience. If you only think, you remain dependent on others' encouragement. You keep asking, do you think I can do it? Do you think I am ready? But once you act, you don't need constant reassurance because your own experience tells you, I have done this before, I can do it again. That kind of confidence cannot be shaken easily because it is yours. So do not sit and wait for confidence to come first. Do not sit endlessly planning the perfect moment. Perfection is an illusion. Life does not reward endless hesitation, it rewards movement. Even if you start small, even if you take one step today, that one step will do more for your confidence than 1,000 thoughts. Each act builds upon the last until one day, without even realizing it, you are walking with a steadiness that others admire. And the beauty is, once you learn to act in spite of fear, fear itself begins to lose its grip. The walls that seemed so high suddenly look small. The obstacles that felt so heavy become manageable. You realize that the monster in your head was never as powerful as you imagined. This realization comes only through action, never through endless reflection. So if you want confidence, don't wait for it. Don't expect it to come as a gift. Step forward, even if your legs shake. Speak, even if your voice cracks. Do it, even if your mind tells you you are not ready. Because confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result of it. That is how confidence becomes your natural state.